All right, so the Cavs just made like a handful of moves. They rearranged their roster and they did some new things. Right? They've modified the roster to the point where I could say this is definitely a different team than it was 2 weeks ago. The biggest trade was acquiring James Harden in exchange, sending Darius Garland to the Clippers. It is obvious, right? I'm a Cavs fan, but it is obvious to me that move is about trying to win a championship as soon as possible, like as soon as this year. Are the Cavs going to win a championship just because they acquired James Harden? No. That is not an automatic lock to the NBA Finals or a championship run or any of those things. What the Darius Garland trade is in bringing in James Harden, it's about getting a guy who, in my opinion, James Harden plays every night mostly. Darius Garland is, in my opinion, especially at this point in their careers, Darius Garland's a better player. He can do a lot of the same things Harden does, but faster. A lot of his shooting, a lot of his distributing and stuff like they're similar. They're point guards, right? Maybe foul baiting. James Harden is better, and thus he's more prolific to the free throw line. I don't know. But the age, right? That's really what this is about. So the Cavs made a sacrifice. They traded a young talent who is, in my opinion, capable of an All NBA selection in terms of what he could be as his ceiling. Right? He could make like an All NBA second team or an All NBA third team in his potential. All right, I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying in his potential. His defense is very mid. It's like there's reasons for him not to be that. But James Harden is well beyond his prime. He's so far past the best version of himself. So this was clearly a win now thing. Now the rest of the moves were depth moves, and they were trying to address the deficiencies. This was even before they traded for James Harden, right? They were trying to get point guard help with Dennis Schroeder. And, moving on from DeAndre Hunter and trying Keon Ellis and which I think those moves were good. I didn't have a problem with it. You're still dealing with injuries with Max Strus. Now you've made some cap space or some roster space to sign Naquan Tomlin to an actual contract. There's certain players whose roles are not going to change. Like Dean Wade's role doesn't change. Tyrese Proctor, his role doesn't change. Craig Porter Jr., his role doesn't change. Donovan, that's to be seen. Like, how much is the ball going to be out of his hands and into James Harden's hand in terms of the weight of that? I think that when they're both healthy, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland had a good balance. Don and James are going to have to figure that part out. Kenny Atkinson. They'll have to figure out that part. Evan Mobley is likely going to get a couple less shots a game, especially the perimeter shots. There are going to be less of those threes because of James Harden. I think Thomas Bryant's role is the same. Jared Allen, his role stays the same. Sam Merrill, his role is not really going to change. It's going to be situational. It's going to be, when he's hot, you leave him in. Defensively, he'll guard the other team's, shooting guard. But I think the one I'm most concerned about is Jalen Tyson. I do not want to see his role diminished or reduced just because you got James Harden. I think you have to continue to develop and nurture that talent. My concern is that. My concern is the Donovan Mitchell dynamic doesn't work. My concern is that Jalen Tyson gets minimized in some way, shape, or form. I just, those are my concerns. Evan Mobley, he's already shown to kind of have moments where he really kind of is hidden. He's not really digging in and asserting himself. So, like, does James Harden bring the dog out of him and give him those really nice opportunities, rim rolls, the pick and pop game, some of that stuff? Or is it going to be where it's not that great and he gets even further minimized and disappearing out of games? I don't know. Look, what I'm trying to convey as a Cavs fan is there's a lot of unknown. Kenny Atkinson has to figure this out. Don, James, they have to figure this out. And then the other guys around them play to the strengths of each other. And right now, this could potentially be the best version of the Cavs we have this year. It could be. But I don't want it to be at the cost of what they've already done up to this point with the young guys, the Craig Porter Jr.'s, the Jalen Tysons. I don't want to see those guys get minimized. Evan Mobley, I want to see him take that next step. You know, the guys that you brought here to support the team off the bench, Dennis Schroeder, you know, Keon Ellis. Like, you didn't bring these guys for nothing. So we'll have to wait and see. They've got a couple of months to figure it out before the playoffs start. The playoffs will be the main thing. Like, how do we decide how successful this Cavs season is? Depends on what they do in the playoffs. Depends how they play against the Knicks in the playoffs, how they play against the Pistons, how they play against the Celtics potentially. Like, those are the matchups. You know, how did these moves help the Cavs in those matchups? That's what we have to find out. No doubt James Harden is more available than Darius Garland, but Darius Garland's future is bright. You know, with him being healthy, you wouldn't even be questioning this. But because of his injury, it makes this trade legitimately possibly a good trade, which is crazy. He just didn't play. But anyways, I just want to kind of speak those things out there and kind of put that on my channel and discuss the concepts, you know, because honestly, man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have high confidence that we're going to win a title or anything, but I do have high confidence that based on injury history, it wasn't working with Darius Garland. You had to get something. You're in win now mode. It would have been nice to have them have figured out how to get Giannis over here, but we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think the Cavs are better now or worse? Drop me some comments.